Before starting this video, I do want to give a shout out to my patrons that support the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you if you want to look at the Patreon link down below. So with that out of the way, let's get into this week's video. What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. Glad to have you here. Today I wanted to share with you a deck tech that's focused on Phyrexian Praetors. So this of course has Phyrexian Praetors and also it does have Phyrexians. Not gonna lie, this is gonna be a big fat deck because a lot of the Praetors are really big. They typically have a high mana cost. However, they do have great effects on the battlefield, benefiting yourself but also negating your opponents. But you're probably thinking to yourself, why not just go Phyrexian Tribal? Why do you have to add the Praetor type in there with the Phyrexian Tribal? So there is one reason and one reason only why I decided to go Phyrexian Praetor Tribal. I do have a little bit of a Phyrexian sub-theme in there, but we do have Realmbreaker, the invasion tree. So for 3 mana, we do have a legendary artifact. It has 2 abilities. You can pay 2, tap it, target opponent mills 3 cards, put a land from their graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. It gains if this land would leave the battlefield, exile instead of putting it anywhere. So if somebody has a fetch land in their graveyard, you could use that so that you could search up another land in your deck, because we are in 5 color, but it does have a similar ability to its predecessor with the World Tree. You pay 10 mana and tap it, sacrifice Realmbreaker, the invasion tree, search your library for any number of Praetor cards, then put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So in total, we do have 16 Praetors in this deck. They're Phyrexian, of course. I'm not counting the other Praetors. So we could absolutely take advantage of this when we pay 10 mana into it. To be quite honest, this was the whole inspiration of the deck. I did make a Phyrexian Tribal deck previously in the Phyrexia All Will Be One set with Atraxa, but I do feel like since we got this card right here, I wanted to make sure that we can capitalize on that ability, getting all Praetors out on the battlefield and swinging in hard. So I did actually have a couple commanders in mind for this deck. We definitely want a commander that has the ability to get our Praetors on the battlefield efficiently and effectively. So with this first one, I'm kind of cheating. It's not a Phyrexian. We do have Azeka, God of the Tree, and the Prismatic Bridge. We're not playing it for Azeka, God of the Tree, because we do have the Prismatic Bridge, which has an absolutely fantastic ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Even though it doesn't share the Phyrexian type, I do believe it's a pretty flavorful card as a commander because the Phyrexians stole the sap of the World Tree. This is how they made Realmbreaker so that they could invade all the multiverse. Plus, not to mention, I do feel like it does have a great ability to cheat in big fat Praetors on the battlefield that have absolutely amazing abilities. If you do want to focus on the Phyrexian type, we do have another commander with Omnath, Locust of All. To be quite honest, the reason why I did consider it to be a commander for this deck is mainly because it is 5 color and it's a Phyrexian elemental. It does share that type with Phyrexians, and on top of that, it does have a good way of storing mana. It will become black, but that's okay because we could use that mana so that we could spend it on our big fat Phyrexian Praetors. We don't really have too much cards that have 3 different colors in this deck, but I do feel like it could be useful just to draw some cards. An extra card per turn is not bad, but if you do want to go with this route, I wouldn't blame you. I do feel like the Prismatic Bridge is a little better in my opinion. So with this deck, I'm going to mainly focus on the Prismatic Bridge as a commander. So let's focus on some great support cards so that we could add it in here to make the most out of our Prismatic Bridge. So I did think about tutors like Worldly Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. The simple reason why I thought about these tutors specifically is because you could search your library for a creature card, you could put it on top of your library. We definitely want some top deck manipulation, especially with the Prismatic Bridge, because we could put the top card of our library onto the battlefield. So with tutors, it's definitely an efficient way of doing that. In a similar fashion, we do have Sylvan Library. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. So either way, you could get some card advantage out of Sylvan Library, or if you put a Phyrexian Praetor on top of your library, that's great as well. Another way we could cheat our big creatures in is by having Entomb and Buried Alive so that we could search our library for those specific Praetor cards or other Phyrexians, put them in the graveyard so that we could later reanimate them with Reanimate or another Praetor like Sheoldred. I do feel like this is a good plan B. Of course, with plan A, we want to use the Prismatic Bridge to cheat in creatures. Plan B is to reanimate them, and Plan C is to use the invasion tree. I do know the whole point of the deck is to use the invasion tree as the way to put the Phyrexian Praetors onto the battlefield. However, I feel like we shouldn't just focus on that in my opinion. If you do want another way to cheat out Phyrexians, we do have Birthing Pod. It is kind of funny to see different Praetors having that ability to stack up on one another. We could sacrifice a lower CMC Praetor to get a bigger Praetor on the battlefield. I see this as an absolute win with Birthing Pod. This is also pretty flavorful with Vorinclex's vision of Phyrexia, only the strongest survive, so you sacrifice a weaker one to get a stronger one. So this one you definitely may want to consider adding in the deck. So of course we do have a little bit of a Phyrexian sub-theme in this deck. Let's focus on that and let's capitalize on some great Phyrexians in here. So the first one I did think about, of course, was Atraxa Praetor's Voice. She has that great ability at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate. It does have some amazing stats, Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. This works with some of the completed Planeswalkers in the deck. This also works pretty well with the new Praetors that came out in March of the Machine. Just having the ability to proliferate your sagas will definitely increase the speed of them, which will be pretty powerful overall. Since we're cheating out so much fatties, we might as well cheat out Atraxa Grand Unifier for 7 mana. I know that seems like a lot, but again, we have that reanimation theme, or we do have the Prismatic Bridge to cheat this out into play, but I do feel like this has an amazing ability to get some card advantage. Plus a 7/7 Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink body is nothing to scoff at as well. I did also want to briefly mention Norn's Choirmaster. It does have Flying and First Strike. Whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, you proliferate. So again, like I mentioned, we do have some Planeswalkers in this list, and also the Saga backs of the new Praetors, so I thought this would be an excellent choice to add in here. Because we are in Phyrexian Tribal, we might as well add in this new card from March of the Machine with Phyrexian Censor. For 3 mana, each player can't cast more than 1 non-Phyrexian spell each turn, and non-Phyrexian creatures enter the battlefield tapped. We really don't have to worry about this so much because we have so much Phyrexians in the deck that will not be really existent for us unless we're playing other spells that are non-Phyrexian spells, but honestly, we're not going to see that too much unless we're playing instants or sorceries or using some of our artifacts. So let's move on. Let's talk about the Praetors we want to add into this list. Shocker, spoiler alert, we have all of them in here. So let's focus on the ones that I feel like will bring the most impact in the deck, because we definitely want to have a lot of synergy with the cards we're playing. So the first one I did think about was Vorinclex, the one that came out of March of the Machine. The biggest reason why I thought about this one is because it can help mana fix us. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for up to 2 forest cards, reveal them, and put them to your hand. So it can search up any forest, whether your Triomes or Shocklands, whatever you name it, with the forest typing on them. And on top of that, you can flip them into the Grand Evolution. It has 3 modes. You mill 10 cards, you put 2 creatures from among them onto the battlefield. So let's stop right there. That's actually the best mode in this deck because we want to have a little bit of a reanimation theme. And if we're milling 10 cards, we definitely are going to have a lot more than just 2 Phyrexians on the graveyard so that we can reanimate them later. Then returning 2 back onto the battlefield is absolutely ridiculous. The other ones I don't really care to discuss. I mean, putting counters on your creatures is no joke, and on top of that, having the ability to make your creatures fight other creatures on the battlefield is absolutely excellent. But to be quite honest, that first lore chapter is absolutely perfect in this deck. What a great included here. So we are in a reanimation theme a little bit, so we do want to have Shieldred, the Whispering one, for 7 mana. We do have Swamp Walk, and at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, and at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So of course, this is absolutely great because we definitely want to reanimate more creatures on the battlefield. I do also want to focus on another Praetor with Urabrask the Hidden. So to be quite honest, this actually might be one of the more important Praetors to add to this list. Shocker, because this is typically known to be one of the worst Praetors out of all of them, but this is actually pretty important because of Realmbreaker, the invasion tree. This definitely provides a great way to enable all our Praetors to gain haste when we sacrifice Realmbreaker, so that we could have a way so that we could close out the game with all our Praetors out on the battlefield. We could also buff up our creatures by using Elvish Norn, Grand Cenobite. Other creatures you control get +2/+2, and creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. Absolutely great stack piece on the board, especially when closing out the game. Let's also focus on the new Shieldred. This does have a great ability of making opponents sacrifice a non-token creature or planeswalker, but mainly we want to focus on the backside. Basically, it does have some removal. Each opponent will discard 3 cards, then mill 3 cards, and then you have a great ability of putting all all creature cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under your control. So of course we have that reanimation theme, so this is absolutely perfect in the deck. We do also have another game ender with Elesh Norn, the newest version. We do have a card that has Vigilance, and whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. Also with her lore chapters, they're absolutely insane. You incubate 2 5 times, then transform all incubator tokens you control. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike until end of turn. Then you destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Then you flip it back into Elesh Norn. With this card, and actually many of the other Phyrexians that have that flip ability to turn into a saga, they're absolutely game ending and backbreaking against your opponents. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video. Let me know down below, what are your thoughts about this Phyrexian Tribal deck, and I guess Phyrexian Praetor Tribal deck because of Realmbreaker. Again, the big inspiration for this deck was definitely that Realmbreaker card. I definitely wanted to build around that, but I also do want to have some other backup plans just in case that does fail. I know we're probably not going to get Phyrexians for a while unless they have some in March of the Machine Aftermath. So this is a little bittersweet because we're probably not going to get Phyrexians for a long time. However, we did get some amazing cards for Phyrexian Tribal, so make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.